Now you might be thinking, after the disasters against the first line, why are the British carrying on? But remember, we have to carry on to save the French at Verdun or risk having them knocked out of the war, and we need to keep the German army busy fighting us so that the Russians and maybe the Italians can win the war on other fronts. And so we have the attacking of the second German line, the dawn assault on the 14th of July. But there are some problems to this attack. Well, firstly, the British have a desperate shortage of shells for the heavy guns that they do have. And it's not as if the British have got any particular increase in the number of heavy guns. The French army on the British right flank is refusing to attack, believing that the British plans for the barrage is too short, and that the British infantry are going to be slaughtered in the attacks of the 14th of July, which is the next major British push. The plan calls for only a 5-minute barrage. Remember, after the first major attack, or at least before the first major attack, a 7-day barrage had not succeeded in softening the German lines. Now there will be a 5-minute barrage because the British don't have the shells available. However, the British have learnt from the first day already. The British are going to go into no man's land at night, and then they're going to attack at 3:25 a.m. after that 5-minute barrage and catch the Germans by surprise. Now, a night assault, as anybody will tell you, is difficult. Even the best trained infantry can get lost at night. And these are not the best trained infantry. And yet, despite all of these reasons for the attack on the 14th of July to be a bloody failure, and despite all the predictions, it's a stunning success. Because the artillery is much better used despite the shortage of shells. And on the 1st of July, the British bombarded 322,000 yards of trench. On the 14th of July, they target only 18,000 yards of trench. And so it's much more concentrated. And this concentrated fire smashes the German defences. Now, Longueval Ridge is captured by mid-morning. But even there are wasted opportunities. As the infantry advancing and capturing the German second line, there are still some wasted opportunities. Now, the 2nd Indian Cavalry are to exploit any gap torn by the infantry. But where to keep this cavalry? If they're too far back, then they won't be able to react to any opportunities. They'll be too slow. But if they're too far forward, then the German artillery will simply murder them. Now, in the event, however, once again, the British err too much on the side of caution, and the cavalry are deployed far too far back. It took also, once they told the Indian cavalry that the gap has been torn, it takes much longer than thought for the cavalry to cross the trenches and the shell holes of no man's land. The division couldn't get into the lines in time. Instead of a whole division of cavalry reaching the gap, only 2 regiments reach the front line, the 7th Dragoon Guards and the 2nd Deccan Horse. Out of the 14 regiments sent to exploit this gap, only 2 regiments arrive. And they arrive late in the afternoon, not in the morning, when they were called for. So they arrive in small numbers, and they arrive late. But the cavalry have finally reached where the gap in the lines are. And you can see what's going to happen. The cavalry form up on their horses, and they charge the German positions at High Wood. Now, the Blackadder School of History says that they're going to be slaughtered. But as it happens, the attack is a success, for cavalry are still useful on the Western Front. Now, they are armed with rifles, they carry machine guns as well as the lance and the sword. They can dismount and fight on foot. They have horse artillery to support the advance, 13-pounder guns pulled along by horses to get field artillery into no man's land. And so the historian Stephen Badsey has compared them to short-ranged paratroops. In the right circumstances, they can race ahead, dismount, and defend a position taken until the infantry can arrive and support them. And so the 7th Dragoon Guards before High Wood charge across 1,000 yards into the unprepared German defences and get in amongst the German infantry with the lance. They then come across some German machine guns, and so get off their horses, set up their own machine guns, and silence the German machine guns. And then they assault into High Wood, taking the southern corner of this vital defensive position. They then continue to fight away, and they start to dig in on High Wood. But where are the infantry? Here are the cavalry trying to defend High Wood as it's been captured, but the infantry fail to arrive to reinforce them, and at the end of the day they're forced to fall back out of High Wood. They had lost only 100 men in this gallant charge. Now, had a full division of cavalry rather than 2 regiments arrived, and had they arrived in the morning as opposed to the late afternoon, then they could have achieved decisive success. I have here the words of the historian Stephen Badsey. If 2 regiments could charge successfully for 1,000 yards, a further 12 regiments could have continued the charge for a further 1,500 yards to the east, taking the German positions at Delville Wood and Longueval in the rear. And if we have here the words of the great historian Gary Sheffield, the absence of a substantial force of cavalry condemned the BEF to months of heavy fighting before Delville and High Wood fell into their hands. And so there had been some wasted opportunities, but a great success had nonetheless been achieved on the 14th of July, and the German second lines had been cleared. They then embarked upon a series of what we call bite and hold attacks, small attacks to grab small bits of ground, but on the 27th of July, it appeared that the British had learnt how to attack the German defences. They attacked Delville Wood with 2 brigades, supported by 2 corps worth of artillery. The artillery shattered the German defences at Delville Wood, and the British were able to seize most of the key position. And so, as August began, there was grounds for real hope that the British could achieve a great success upon the Somme.